Today, our discussion is disaster preparedness for caregivers to evacuate or shelter in place. September is National Preparedness Month, and planning is key to making it through all kinds of disasters, which affect seniors, vulnerable populations, and caregivers uniquely. September is the peak of hurricane season, with most storms occurring in September and October. We have a timely presentation today to answer the most important question that caregivers are often faced with when a storm is coming. Should we evacuate or shelter in place? That can be an especially difficult decision if you have someone living with you who experiences cognitive decline, who wanders, who may deal with incontinence. And today we'll talk about the implications of whether evacuating or sheltering in place may be the right thing for you. So in our presentation, we'll discuss how to make an informed decision about evacuating for a storm or sheltering in place. We'll talk about what you should know if you're staying in place with a care recipient or if you're evacuating with a care recipient. I'm Dr. Elliot Montgomery Sklar. I'm a professor of health science at Nova Southeastern, is an educator, researcher, and leader of community-based health programs in the US and Canada for almost 20 years. I'm credentialed by FEMA and have led disaster preparedness workshops for healthcare centers across Florida.
Hi, I'm Lucy Barilak. I received my master's degree from McGill University from the School of Social Work, and I've been working in the healthcare system for over 30 years. I've dedicated my career to supporting caregivers. I was the founder and long-standing manager of the Caregiver Support Center, a multi-service respite program for caregivers and the people they care for. My research studies have been published in numerous journals. I also received the Queen's Jubilee Award for the role in developing a national coalition to support caregivers across Canada. Presently, I'm a supervisor at the School of Social Work at McGill University, but most important, I was a caregiver for my mother. Now, we know older adults can face greater risks when it comes to the multitude of extreme weather events and emergencies we now face. But hurricane season can be especially taxing for caregivers who care for someone at home. Planning is so important for disaster, small or big. Last year, FEMA signed an agreement with the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers to develop materials and programs specifically for caregivers as it relates to being prepared. We're providing their website as their guide for caregivers is really very comprehensive and very helpful. So the question is, should I stay or should I go? Well, remember that the choice may not be yours. If you live in a flood zone or an area of evacuation, then you may not have a choice and be forced to leave. Deciding whether to evacuate during a hurricane when caregiving for a loved one with any form of dementia requires careful consideration of both immediate safety and specific needs of your loved one. Our goal is to help you make an informed choice. Weigh the risk of staying versus evacuating. The decision should be prioritized. It should always prioritize safety, considering the unique needs of your loved one and the anticipated severity of a storm.
These are excellent points because storms can be unpredictable, even with the best planning on our part. And if you would like more information, we have also included at the bottom of the screen an extended disaster preparedness program that Lucy and I have facilitated, which you can find on the Caregiver Teleconnection YouTube channel. One piece of advice, whether you stay or whether you go, that we have for you is to see if a friend or family member can join you in sheltering in place or if you choose to evacuate. It can help to take off a lot of the stress. For example, sharing in traveling or just comforting one another can be very helpful during these stressful times.
So, should you stay or go? Here's a structured approach to help make the decision. Assess the severity of the hurricane. Check warnings and advisories. Pay attention to updates from the National Weather Service and local authorities. Understand the projected paths, the strength, and the impact of the hurricane. Understand evaluation orders. Follow any mandatory evacuation orders issued for your area. These orders are based on the expected severity and risk level of the storm. Evaluate your current situation. Have you been through a storm before? Each year, people relocate to areas that are prone to having storm. In your own experience and tolerance for storm is important. Many people have sheltered in place through 2 categories, 3 storms, and vote not to do that again. And in both experiences, storms were not supposed to be that strong, which is why many people stayed. So that has taught a lot of people to expect that a storm can strengthen beyond what is predicted. Safety at home. Consider whether your home can withstand the hurricane effects, such as flooding, high winds, and power outrages. Sometimes not having power is enough reason for many people to consider wanting to evacuate, or if you don't have hurricane impact resistant windows, for example. Emergency preparedness. Assess if you have adequate emergency supplies such as food, water, medication, and a backup power source. If your plan is to try and shelter in place, then you should be prepared. Consider your loved one's medical need. Ensure you have enough medication and medical supplies for your loved one. You'll need this if you shelter in place or if you leave, but also consider if their health condition might be increased by the stress or lack of routine.
Now, when it comes to medical needs, it's important to know how to maintain medication safely at home if you lose power. And again, we have extended programs on disaster preparedness tips for caregivers where we talk about this in more detail. But if you shelter in place at home, a storm can be stressful to endure, not just for care recipients, but for caregivers too. Now, caregiving can be stressful in and of itself. So some of the best ways to manage stress in hard times is through practicing self-care. And self-care should be a part of every disaster preparedness plan. If we adopt habits that are healthy, that sets us up to cope better with stressful times. If you've had to shelter in place, for example, with your care recipient, think of what you can do to practice self-care at home. For some people, that means taking some breaks, which is why having another person join you in sheltering can be helpful if that is possible. And for other people, it can be exercising at home too. We learned a lot of ways to practice self-care at home during the COVID-19 pandemic. So try to lean on your past experience as part of your planning and think about what you would do in a crisis situation. It's important as caregivers that we realize that care recipients receive our cues from caregivers, and it's an important thing to consider during stressful times like a storm.
So evaluate how your loved one might respond to the stress of evacuation. People with dementia can become disoriented and agitated during disruptions. Comforting someone with dementia during a hurricane can be particularly important. Here are some strategies to help make the situation as calm and safe as possible. So it's very important to keep communication simple. Use short, clear sentences and gentle reassurance. Avoid overloading them with information about the hurricane. You know your person better than anyone else. Reassure and redirect. If they become anxious or confused, gently redirect their attention to something more pleasant or engaging, like a favorite activity or a comforting story. Remind them that they are safe and that you are there to help. Reassure them that the storm will pass and everything will be okay. Offer physical comfort. It's important. If they are comfortable with being touched, Holding their hand or giving them a gentle hug can be soothing. Think of things that bring your care recipient comfort. It could be scented lotion or a massage, whatever it takes. Maintain routine if possible. Stick to familiar routine to provide a sense of normalcy and stability. Monitor for signs of distress. Be attentive to their emotional state and look for signs of increased anxiety or confusion. Address these signs with calm, supportive measures and be patient. Use distraction technique. Engage them in activities they enjoy, such as listening to music, reading a book, or watching a favorite show to keep their mind occupied, or whatever it takes. Prepare for their disorientation. We know that people suffering from dementia might become disoriented more easily during stressful situations. Be patient and gentle in guiding them through any necessary actions or changes. In the long run, seek professional guidance. If you're in touch with your healthcare provider, follow any specific advice they may have for managing stress or confusion during the emergencies. Some medications can be helpful for anxiety and agitation, and you should speak to their doctor about that.
Absolutely. And as we mentioned earlier, evacuating may not be a choice. You may have to if an evacuation order is mandated. So it's important to know that if you defy that order and stay, you may be cut off from emergency services. And that is why it is so important to keep on top of the news and the evolving path of a storm. And it's important to have a plan. So, plan for evacuation. You need to identify possible evacuation routes and shelters. Know the locations of these shelters and their suitability for people with special needs. Some shelters may be equipped to handle medical or cognitive needs. And now is a good time to call 211 in your community to ask about shelters that cater to people with any kinds of special needs, including if you have pets, and it's a good time to pre-register for these shelters because many counties do require that you pre-register as part of this evacuation planning. Consider where you may go if you had to evacuate. So while counties usually open shelters, this may not be ideal for all caregivers and all care recipients are just that, a shelter. They don't provide food or beds, so you need to inquire and pack accordingly for your comfort. If you have the means and the ability to stay with friends or family or at an extended stay hotel, consider these options too. Now, many people just look for a hotel off of a major highway, but planning ahead as a caregiver can allow you to find accommodations that may be closer to major medical centers or sometimes in city centers that will often get power restored faster than in rural areas. So these are some things to consider. Also, how far you're physically able to go. Another consideration to think about is to find a hotel or a motel with an inside hallway. It's much easier for people with Alzheimer's or dementia to wander out of a hotel room that has a door that goes to the outside, as opposed to an inside corridor. Many motels along highways have doors that go right outside. So think about that. If you need to arrange transportation, make sure that you have a comfortable means of getting to where you need to go. Now, that might include some special arrangements, for example, for medical equipment, or if your loved one needs assistance with mobility. It could be as simple, on the other hand, as making sure that your car had a recent tune-up and oil change. Now's a good time to do that. If your care recipient gets agitated in the car, know that in advance. That may be another good reason to consider having another person with you if that is an option. And of course, prepare an emergency kit with all the essential items. We shared a link earlier to the Rosalind Carter Institute. They have a lot more information about how to go about these emergency kits, but they should include all important documents, some of the comfort items that Lucy was talking about that your loved one may find that they enjoy, And that could be music or having a special lotion or a smell. Include things to make people feel more at home, more familiar, more comfortable. You know your loved one best. And those could be objects that help to just simply quell or distract that person as well.
That's for sure, Ellie. It's very important to have that prepared ahead of time. Now, if the person with dementia lives in a residential building or attends an adult day center, learn about its disaster and evacuation plans. Find out who's responsible for evacuating everyone in the event of the emergency. You need to know that, especially if they're not with you and they're in the day center. What do you do? If you are evacuating with someone who suffers from cognitive impairment, there are additional things you want to pack in your grab and go bag, including ID bracelet, recent picture of the person in case of wandering. Consider enrolling in a wandering response service, such as those offered by the Medic Alert Foundation. Contact the Alzheimer's Association 24-7 helpline, which is 800-272-3900 for more information. Do your best to keep calm. I know it's not easy, but it's important because they will react to your behavior. Individuals with disease take cues, as I said, from their caregivers. If they feel you are panicked or anxious, they will sense that and feel unsafe. Scared feelings can cause agitation and challenging behavior. Keep reassuring them that they are safe and they realize that they may not understand what's going on. Use private moments to process your own fears and emotions. So go outside, find something, just calm yourself down. You may also find it helpful to call Alzheimer's Association helpline at 800 as 272-3900 to speak to a care consultant who can listen and provide support to you. When appropriate, inform others, for example, in the hotel or shelter staff, family members, even airline attendants, that your loved one has dementia and may not understand what is happening. Do not leave the person alone. It only takes a few minutes to wander away and get lost. Changes in routine, traveling, and new environment can cause agitation and wandering behaviors, including hallucination, delusion, and sleep disturbances. So you need to be prepared for that and know how to handle it.
We have a lot of resources to share, and we know that we have provided a lot of information. But that question, should we stay or should we go, is a really critical one. We have a link to an existing disaster preparedness program that Lucy and I have recorded, and you can again find that on the Caregiver Teleconnection YouTube channel. I also wanted to say that Lucy brought up a great point about sheltering in place, and think about what your previous experience may have been. If you have more experience with doing that and you know what to anticipate and your comfort level is there and you feel safe about that decision, that may be a good choice if you're not in a mandatory evacuation area. But think about the things that you might need and start to collect them over time so that it doesn't feel as overwhelming. For example, every time you go to the grocery store, get an extra non-perishable item and an extra jug of water
Yeah,
and
those are
flashlight.
very important tips.
Yes, and to have flashlights and batteries and devices that don't require you to recharge them. Many devices now, like even lanterns and flashlights, they are rechargeable, which is great. But if you don't have power, that can be a problem. So think about that too. We have a number of different links here on our screen to share with you a number of resources. Remember as well that you can call 988 if you're feeling like this is overwhelming, if you need to speak with a crisis counselor at any time. And of course, the WellMed Charitable Foundation at 1-866-390-6491. They have a lot of information about the programs that they offer, and you can contact them at any of the different options on your screen. Thank you again for watching this presentation.
Thank you, everyone, and have a good day. Bye.